Hi, welcome back to the Organic Rose. Today we're going to work on one of my favorites, one of my passions, New England style clam chowder. We've got some nice fresh clams. These are cherry stones actually. And we have some butter, some organic butter. We've got some organic cream and a little bit of organic flour. So let's start out by making the base for this. There's actually two bases, okay? One is a fish fumet, which I've made right over here. And it's got delicious aromas of fish, and it just smells like the ocean. It's got fresh halibut in there, carrots, celery, onions, garlic. It's got some chives in there as well, some fresh oregano, and just a little pinch of salt, not very much at all, and a crack of pepper, of course. And what I'm doing with that is I'm going to distill all those flavors into the fish stock, and then that will be our liquid for the soup. So I've got a pan going here. Let's turn it up a bit. We're going to start out with some butter. And we're just going to melt the butter. Let's add a little bit more because butter's always good, huh? And I'm going to add a sprinkle, just a little bit of olive oil. That's all you need. So that's another fat, right? The butter's a fat, the olive oil's a fat. Let's set that bottle back up there. And the butter's melting into the olive oil. Yummy. So what we're going to make here is called a roux. It's a French term, R-O-U-X. And it's simply equal parts of a fat and equal parts of flour. So we added about 2 tablespoons of the combination of the butter and the olive oil. Now I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some of the flour in there. A little bit more. People always ask me, well, chef, how much did you use? When is it ready? When it's done. I used as much as I needed to use. So it's going to form, it's forming its roux. It's kind of like a paste. And this is your go-to thickening agent. You want to cook it for about 10 minutes or until it's done. But by cooking it for about 10 minutes, you cook the flour out of it, so it shouldn't taste like flour. Let's add a little bit more flour to it. And get it nice and thick. All right. So let's let that cook. I'll set my whip down, my whisk. And let's turn the heat up on this a little bit. All right, the roux is getting close to being ready. We are going to add a little bit of the fish fumet to it. You can hear that sizzle. A little bit more. Okay, and then let's whisk it up a bit. So of course it's going to get really super thick now. So basically what you've done is you've activated that roux. Let's give it some more of the fumet. A little bit more. Okay. Now this, some organic cream. Yum. So that's forming a really nice base for your soup now, for your chowder. It's almost like velvet, like white velvet. Let's turn the heat up a little bit. Okay. Some people use clam juice for clam chowder. I'm not a really big fan of that. I just like making my own, like this fish fumet, making my own fish stock. You can make clam stock if you want. Okay, so let's go ahead and add these clams into it. And as these clams open up, as you'll see them open, they're going to emit a lot of the natural juices that are in the clamshell already. So that's why you really don't need to buy a bottle of clam juice. So what's really important is when you're at your local fishmonger and you're buying clams to make your chowder, you tell him or her, make sure that all the clams are closed. You do not want to buy open clams. And the difference being, open clam is a dead clam, closed clam is a live clam. You only want to use live clams. Of course, I've washed them already. I gave them a rinse. And there we go. Okay, let's turn the heat up a bit. And we'll give it a little stir. Looks good to me. Let's give it a crack of white pepper. Why am I using white pepper? Because you'll get the flavor of the pepper, but you won't see it. I like it spicy, so let's put a little bit more in there. There we go. So don't forget, the fish fumet has the onions in it, the carrots in it, the celery, the garlic, all your seasonings, some of that oregano. I put a couple of pimientos actually in there too. I just harvested a bunch of pimientos out of the garden. And so your fumet has all those ingredients in it. So you really don't need to add much to the chowder. I'll stir in the pepper a bit. Sometimes if I feel like it, and I'm kind of lazy right now, but sometimes I'll add a crack or two of nutmeg into it. And it kind of brightens up the flavor of the cream and brings more of those flavors right to your palate. Nutmeg's good at that, about that, but use very little of it because it can be very strong. It can permeate your product, actually. I think I'm going to add a little bit more cream. Might as well just finish it up. What the heck? And okay, you can see the cream starting to bubble now. You don't want it to boil too much, but you're trying to just incorporate that roux into the cream to make it nice and thick. And you want, of course, the clams to open up and release all their liquid into your chowder. The best thing to go with this, some people like to eat crackers with their chowder. I'm not a big cracker fan, but I love really good sourdough French bread, and that's what I do. That's my go-to. Nice loaf of crusty bread, heat it up on the wood-burning stove, and just get it nice and crusty, crispy outside, and slice it and dip it into your soup. It's a home run, baby. Okay. So the clams are just starting to peak a little bit. They're starting to open up just a little. And what's forming along the sides of your pan, in Spanish we call it natilla or nata, and that's basically just the fat from the cream that's rising and it's clinging to the sides of the pan, but that's okay, just stir it right back in. Oh, you know what I'm going to add to this? The world's most expensive spice you can think of. Saffron. I'm going to add a little bit in there. You don't need much because saffron is very concentrated. And it's very expensive. But look at how pretty that is. So it's going to end up giving it as the saffron threads. They're actually threads from a flower. Once it cooks into the chowder, it's going to impart this like a nice pink hue to it. It takes a couple minutes. You don't need much at all. And I've got a spoon right here and a ladle right there. I'm going to give it a taste and see how it is with salt, if it needs some pepper, that sort of stuff. Velvet. That's all I got to say. Velvet. Make sure when you're tasting different things that you're cooking, don't put your tasting spoon into the pot because you're contaminating it. You don't want your guests or your family to get some germs that you may have. So I just have a separate tasting spoon. And I just ladle it into the tasting spoon. My grandmother from Spain would say, Esteban, olvídate, means forget about it. This is so good. Okay, the clams are opening. So you'll notice that the soup chowder is going to get a little bit thinner now because all that clam milk, the juice in there inside of those clams is now going into your chowder. It's exactly what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and dish some of this up now, and we can taste the wonderfulness of it. So I'll put a couple clams in here. Okay, and then let's put some of the chowder over the top. So I can't wait to jump into this chowder, and it's just going to warm me up. Yeah, I could be telling some different fish jokes and that kind of stuff, but I'm just going to clam it up now, and I'll catch you next time on The Organic Rose.